This is Logan Blackwood, reporting for International Desk. There is a number that puts everything happening in the Persian Gulf right now into perspective. 23. That is how many years it has been since the United States last had 3 aircraft carriers operating simultaneously in the Middle East. The last time was 2003, the beginning of the invasion of Iraq, one of the largest military operations in American history. This week, on Thursday, April 24th, U.S. Central Command made a formal announcement. The USS Abraham Lincoln, the USS Gerald R. Ford, the USS George H.W. Bush, all 3, all in position, all operational, with over 200 aircraft, 15,000 sailors and Marines, and 12 accompanying warships carrying guided missiles, Aegis combat systems, and some of the most advanced weapons technology on Earth. The last time the U.S. assembled this kind of naval power in this region, a government fell within weeks. And this time, unlike 2003, there are Iranian mines on the floor of the Strait of Hormuz, Iranian gunboats actively patrolling the world's most critical oil waterway, a naval blockade running in both directions, and a ceasefire that is holding in name only. 3 carriers, 1 waterway, no deal. And a defense secretary who told reporters this week that the blockade will continue for as long as it takes, whatever President Trump decides. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what 3 carrier strike groups in the Middle East means militarily, what they can do, what they signal, and what their presence tells us about where this conflict is heading, why this buildup is not just deterrence, but a positioned strike force capable of major offensive operations, and why the combination of this firepower with a collapsing diplomatic track and an active mine threat in the strait represents the most dangerous moment of this entire conflict. Stay with me, because what was announced on Thursday is not background noise. It is a signal, and understanding what it means is essential to understanding what comes next. Before we get into the details, I want you to think about a pressure gauge. Every industrial system has one. A boiler, a pipeline, a pressurized vessel. The gauge tells you how much stress the system is under. Normal operations run in a green zone. Warning levels push it into yellow. And past a certain point, when the pressure exceeds what the system was designed to hold, you enter the red zone. The Strait of Hormuz has been a pressure gauge for the global energy system for 57 days. Since February 28th, when this war began, that gauge has been climbing. Mines on the seabed, gunboats firing on tankers, a blockade from the U.S. side, a counter-closure from Iran's side, diplomatic talks that collapsed twice, oil at $105. 3 aircraft carriers arriving simultaneously is not a routine fluctuation on that gauge. It is the needle moving into red. Here is the complete military picture, with precise details, because the specifics matter enormously. The USS Abraham Lincoln arrived first. It entered CENTCOM's area of responsibility in late January 2026, before the war even began, as tensions with Iran were escalating. It brings with it FA-18E Super Hornets, F-35C Lightning IIs, EA-18G Growlers for electronic warfare, E-2 Hawkeyes for airborne early warning, and MH-60 helicopters. It has been the primary carrier enforcing the naval blockade of Iranian ports from its position in the Arabian Sea. The USS Gerald R. Ford deployed next. It left for the Middle East in February 2026. It transited the Suez Canal. It is currently operating in the Red Sea. The Ford is not just another carrier. It is the most technologically advanced warship in American history. It features the Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System, EMALS, which can generate significantly higher sortie rates than legacy steam catapults. It carries advanced arresting gear. Its power generation capacity is triple that of the Nimitz-class carriers it is designed to replace. The Ford's deployment to this region was described by multiple defense analysts at the time as one of the most significant force postures in the region since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The USS George H.W. Bush arrived on Thursday. It left Naval Station Norfolk on March 31st. It did not take the standard route through the Suez Canal or the Red Sea. Instead, specifically to avoid the Houthi threat in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, it traveled around the Cape of Good Hope, the southern tip of Africa, an 18,000-mile journey that added weeks to its transit time. The decision to send a carrier on that route is not taken lightly. It tells you something important about how seriously U.S. military planners are taking the threat environment in the waters surrounding this region. But here's where it gets worse. When the Bush arrived, CENTCOM made an announcement that should be read carefully. It said, and this is a direct quote, that for the first time in decades, 3 aircraft carriers are operating in the Middle East at the same time. It listed the aircraft, over 200. It listed the personnel, 15,000 sailors and Marines. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, in a press briefing the same day, said that a second carrier, referring to the Bush, would now join the Abraham Lincoln specifically to help enforce the blockade. This is not a diplomatic signal. This is not a show of presence designed to reassure allies. This is a combat-configured, offense-capable, 3-carrier strike force positioned within operational range of Iran. During an active ceasefire, during ongoing mine-clearing operations, during a blockade that both sides are actively enforcing, and during a diplomatic process that collapsed today without producing a single meeting. Let's go through the receipts. Receipt number 1. What 3-carrier strike groups actually represent as a military instrument, and why this buildup is historically significant. Each carrier strike group is accompanied by guided missile cruisers and Arleigh Burke-class destroyers equipped with the Aegis combat system, forming a layered defense against aircraft, cruise missiles, and ballistic threats. NPR. That architecture is specifically designed to counter Iran's anti-access and area denial capabilities. The anti-ship ballistic missiles, the drone swarms, the fast attack boats that form the core of Iran's asymmetric naval strategy. The strike mission capacity of 3-carrier air wings provides a scalable ability to conduct precision attacks against missile launch sites, command networks, and strategic infrastructure without reliance on regional bases. NPR. That last phrase is critical. Without reliance on regional bases. In late January of this year, Gulf states reportedly blocked U.S. military base and airspace access over fears of Iranian retaliation. 3 carriers in open water are not constrained by that kind of political pressure. They are self-contained strike platforms that require no permission from any host nation to operate. The total U.S. military presence in the region will exceed 60,000 personnel, NPR, once the Bush's strike group is fully integrated. That includes ground forces, Air Force assets, and the naval contingent. The U.S. Air Force has deployed F-22 Raptors and F-15E Strike Eagles to bases in Israel and Jordan. 14 aerial refueling tankers are staged at Ben Gurion Airport, enough to extend the Ford's carrier air wing to reach any target inside Iran. This was the first U.S. deployment of offensive weaponry in Israel. Factcheck.org. The last time the U.S. assembled comparable firepower in this region was the beginning of Operation Iraqi Freedom. That comparison is not rhetorical. It is the factual benchmark that U.S. Central Command itself used when making Thursday's announcement. And this is where everything changes. Both President Trump and Iran's top diplomat have publicly stated that the Strait of Hormuz remains fully open. That rare alignment between adversaries is striking, but it raises more questions than it answers. If the waterway is functioning normally, the rationale for parking 3 carrier strike groups nearby has not been laid out in any public Pentagon briefing or congressional testimony. Congress.gov. Think about that for a moment. Both governments are saying the strait is open, and yet the U.S. is sending its 3rd aircraft carrier on an 18,000-mile detour around Africa to get there faster. The actions and the words do not match. And in geopolitics, when the actions and the words do not match, the actions are telling the truth. Receipt number 2. What Iran is doing in and around the strait right now, and why the mine threat makes the carrier buildup even more dangerous. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Navy has conducted 21 confirmed attacks on merchant ships since the war began. It has seized container vessels, the MSC Francesca and the Epaminondas, claiming maritime regulation violations. It has fired on tankers, causing structural damage to bridge superstructures, and, in at least one case, causing a vessel to take on water. Iran has planted naval mines across sections of the strait. The Pentagon told lawmakers this week that fully clearing those mines will take 6 months. Even if the U.S. sweeps the strait and declares everything clear, Iran only needs to say that not all mines have been found, and commercial shipping will treat the waterway as a live minefield, regardless of official clearances. NPR Iran has declared it has rights to the passage that links the Gulf to the Indian Ocean, parts of which go through Iranian territorial waters, and is now suggesting it can charge tolls and impose transit conditions on all vessels using the route. Congress.gov. That is not a temporary emergency measure. That is a claim of permanent sovereign authority over an international waterway, a position that, if accepted, would fundamentally reshape maritime law and global energy security for decades. Trump's response has been unambiguous. He wrote on Truth Social, "No ship can enter or leave without the approval of the United States Navy." It is sealed up tight until such time as Iran is able to make a deal. Congress.gov. Two governments, one waterway, each claiming full authority over it, each deploying military force to back that claim, and no framework, no agreement, no protocol, no mechanism, governing how either side's military forces are supposed to interact when they operate in the same waters simultaneously. What most people are missing is this. 3 littoral combat ships home-ported in Bahrain have mine countermeasure capabilities, but they have limited point defense systems against cruise missiles and no defense against ballistic missiles. NPR. The arrival of the Bush Carrier Strike Group provides the air defense umbrella those minesweepers need to operate. In other words, the third carrier was deployed, in part, to protect the ships clearing the mines. The mine-clearing operation required the carrier required a 24-day journey around Africa, and the mine-clearing operation itself will take 6 months. Every link in this chain reveals how deep and how complex the U.S. military commitment in this region has become, and how long it is likely to last. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said on Thursday that Israel is prepared to renew the war against Iran, and that it is awaiting the green light from Trump to return Iran to what he called the Age of Darkness. CNBC. That statement was made the same day the third carrier arrived. The same day the mine-clearing operation was tripled in pace. The same day Trump canceled the Pakistan diplomatic trip. The timing of that statement is not coincidental. Receipt number 3. What global markets and governments are registering, and why the economic consequences of this buildup extend far beyond the Persian Gulf. For the commercial vessels that carry roughly a fifth of the world's oil through the Strait of Hormuz, the expanded naval presence offers a measure of reassurance. For Tehran and its regional proxies, the signal is difficult to misread. Congress.gov. Oil is trading at $105 a barrel. War risk insurance premiums for Hormuz transits remain at crisis levels. Major shipping firms have not resumed normal operations despite the ceasefire. The IEA projects global crude refinery runs will decline by 1 million barrels per day for all of 2026. European governments have spent an additional $28 billion on energy imports without receiving extra supply. U.S. gas prices are above $4 a gallon. Observers believe these moves are a pressure tactic within a negotiating strategy rather than a prelude to immediate escalation, especially given Trump's statements affirming the continuation of pressure on Iran. Tehran, for its part, considers this a dangerous escalation that threatens international maritime security. Wikipedia. Both of those assessments can be simultaneously true. A pressure tactic and a dangerous escalation are not mutually exclusive. The pressure is real. The military force backing it is real. And the risk of miscalculation. One Iranian gunboat that moves too quickly. One U.S. minesweeper that gets too close to an IRGC patrol zone. One mine that detonates under a vessel whose nationality creates a new political crisis is real. The Iran-Iraq tanker war of the 1980s, the last time the U.S. Navy escorted commercial tankers through the Persian Gulf under active fire, began with limited incidents and gradually escalated to the point where the U.S. Navy was fighting the Iranian Navy directly. In July 1988, the USS Vincennes shot down Iran Air Flight 655, killing 290 civilians in a case of mistaken identification during a naval engagement. That was the endpoint of an escalation that started with individual ship attacks and gradually pulled more military assets into a contested waterway until a tragedy became inevitable. The situations are not identical, but the pattern, 2 navies, 1 waterway, both claiming authority, neither willing to back down, is recognizable. If this is connecting dots you haven't seen anywhere else, subscribe to International Desk right now. Hit the bell, because this buildup is the most significant military development of this entire conflict, and its implications will shape what happens in the coming weeks in ways that no ceasefire announcement can fully contain. Here is where we stand. For the first time since the invasion of Iraq in 2003, 3 U.S. aircraft carriers are operating simultaneously in the Middle East. Over 200 aircraft, 15,000 sailors and Marines, 12 accompanying warships, a total regional force exceeding 60,000 personnel. Deployed to a region where an active ceasefire is being violated daily, Iranian mines are on the seabed of the world's most critical oil route. A 6-month mine-clearing operation is underway. Diplomatic talks collapsed today, and Iran's military has promised devastating retaliation if its civilian infrastructure is hit again. The USS Abraham Lincoln, the USS Gerald R. Ford, the USS George H.W. Bush, 3 carriers, 1 waterway, no deal, and a pressure gauge that has been moving toward red for 57 days. The last time the U.S. assembled 3 carriers in this region, a war began within weeks. I'm Logan Blackwood. This has been International Desk, and this might only be the beginning.